They folded like one of those CVS chairs. And this is not a knock on CVS, which is a great store, great institution, but they folded like a cheap lawn chair.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It is Friday, July 4th, 2025. Happy 4th of July. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, the 5 things we learned from this past week's reconciliation bill. Number 2, the Punch Power Matrix. Who's up, who's down this week? And number 3, California Republican David Valado has a challenger. All right, Jake, let's get into it. The top headline of the morning, where we spend the most of our focus, has truly been reconciliation. It's passed. They got through it. What did we learn this week? Because there's some lessons here.
You know, Anna, I've gotten some sleep, which is good.
Less swearing. I didn't realize in the moment because we were when we were doing it yesterday, but I heard, wow, Jake was really tired. He let it fly. So we got to keep it G-rated for the children.
Yes, I moved to PG. Because I certainly didn't use anything that bad, but fine. Okay. I apologize. This is a family. I forget that people listen to this around their children.
Right.
But I will be careful. I was skeptical they can get this done by July 4th. I will admit that. My base case all along, and you've heard me say this a million times, is that they would get this done. And they did get this done. They got it done by July 4th. And I'll tell you what, Anna, it was an absolutely crazy process. Ugly, but big and beautiful at the same time. So there is a lot of credit to go around, mostly to Mike Johnson and John Thune and the president. And the president's team, his Legislative Affairs staff, his cabinet, they got this thing through. And, we'll see the political impact, Anna. We will. I mean, because it's July 4th, 2025. Republicans have extended the tax cuts, which they think is going to be a huge political boon for them. They've also cut $1 trillion from Medicaid. They've also impacted SNAP benefits. And again, we don't have a crystal ball. I don't want to overstate it or understate it, but these kinds of things play in elections. And we'll talk about David Valado, who has a district with, by some estimates, 65% Medicaid. 65% of the folks are on Medicaid in some way, shape, or form. So we'll have to see how this works out. But let's talk about these 5 things we learned. Number 1, I'll start and kick it over to you in a second. Trump got what he wanted. You got to say, the guy did get what he wanted. He got the 2017 tax cuts extended, tax on tips, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. He got new funding for the military. He got border wall money, and he got a $5 trillion debt limit increase, which is just, it's astounding. One thing he did not get, and this is a bone of contention that we have with some folks, including the White House. One thing he called for is no tax on Social Security. That is a discrete thing, meaning either because you can't do Social Security in reconciliation, but there is a tax on Social Security benefits. They lowered tax on seniors. They did not cut the specific tax on Social Security. This is, to borrow a phrase from a best-selling 2019 book written by 2 very, very intelligent people, this is my hill to die on. So, but he did get what he wanted, Anna, and that's what happens when you win the presidency and you have the House and Senate. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is Trump's Washington, and he delivered exactly. He got what he wanted. I think the biggest takeaway is this is Trump's Washington. I think the second thing we write about this morning that is really important is the House Freedom Caucus. I didn't want to go too hard in it, but if you listened this week, I was very skeptical that they would actually hold the line against Donald Trump. And I was proven right. Chip Roy and House Freedom Caucus, it's tough because the whole point of the Freedom Caucus was to be kind of the antithesis, to be the kind of tip of the spear that's poking leadership to say no. And it works really well when you're in the minority because it's a lot easier to do that. But man, it's the caucus that folds. I mean, what's the point of the Freedom Caucus going forward, Jake?
I don't know. They came out and they said we voted for the House bill because the House bill will get better in the Senate. The House bill didn't get better in the Senate by all accounts. And then they said when the Senate passed its bill, we don't like this bill. It's a disaster. They issued long memos saying the disaster that was the Senate bill. They said we would not vote for it on, I guess that would be Wednesday. You could just fold up shop, they said send the staff home. And then they voted for it. There is the Freedom Caucus. I mean, there's almost a book to be written. I'm not sure anyone would read it, but I'm fascinated by it, about the Freedom Caucus and their use of power. Something we focus on is the use of power. When you come out and you say, and you make threats and you don't follow through on said threats, then you lose power. Now, the Freedom Caucus was bought out and folded. Like, there'll be a lot of people watching parades and fireworks on folding chairs today. They folded like one of those CVS chairs. And this is not a knock on CVS, which is a great store, great institution, but they folded like a cheap lawn chair. I don't know, Anna. I don't know what the point of the Freedom Caucus is. If you are going to say something, you might as well, you got to follow through on it.
At some point, you have to follow through, because if you don't, then everyone says, okay, yeah.
Everyone already says
on the head and says, okay, great. Like, if you're Mike Johnson, okay, I heard you. I understand you don't like it, but at the end of the day, I mean, let's project forward where this actually matters now, right? So reconciliation passed. They folded. What's going to happen on government funding?
Yeah. 2.5 months away. Government funding runs out September 30th. And I agree with you. What's going to happen there? The Freedom Caucus, I mean, they were bought by the administration, which basically said, we'll do all this stuff through executive order. And I'll say this. I know I don't want to go too long here, but the administration has broad authority in every administration, not just this administration, on how to implement the laws. Like, for example, the IRA tax credits, some of the triggers in phasing them out have to do with construction, right? When you begin construction on projects, and the administration can define construction how it wants. So there are implementation things here that they could do. But listen, the core of the bill, they said stunk after the House, after the Senate passed it. They then voted for that bill. All of them, besides Massey, who's not in the Freedom Caucus, and Brian Fitzpatrick, who really, to be honest with you, you could make an argument he shouldn't be voting for this thing because he has a district that Kamala Harris won that only Brian Fitzpatrick could probably win. He's the only Republican that could win that seat.
All right. The other things that we talk about this morning, a lot about kind of John Thune, obviously Mike Johnson, big weeks for them. But I think the other lessons to be learned here is the Senate will always jam the House. It is a tale as old as time, and it continued to be proven true this week, as well as the fact, and I think this is important because when we came in as young Cub reporters so long ago, Jake, I don't even remember. It's a little pump in my eye. You can remember that moment. But the debt was the big thing that Republicans talked about. Cut, cap, grow. I mean, all these things, these messaging, kind of the whole point for Republicans for so long was cutting the debt. The debt was a problem. And right now, Republicans do not care anymore.
Well, they believe that they don't believe CBO. They say that the CBO says this will add $3.4 trillion to the debt within the budget window, which is 10 years from now. They don't buy it. And listen, I've said this all along. You are not serious about debts and deficits if you are going to say we are not going to do anything on all of the big drivers, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and taxes, right? If you are not willing to rework the tax code and you say we're going to keep in all of these loopholes, and that's not a liberal or conservative talking point. The tax code is filled with loopholes. You could argue the loopholes are good, but you could argue they're bad. But if you're leaving out, if you're saying we're only going to touch Medicaid and SNAP and we're going to increase Pentagon spending by a huge amount of money, that's not terribly serious. So anyway, I agree with you on that. And Mike Johnson says that Congress is going to do another reconciliation package in the fall or next year. He said different things to different people.
First one was so much fun, Jake. Come on.
Well, listen, it's good for us. We love covering these things, and I'm all for it. So let's get going on it. But I think it gets much more difficult, Anna, and John Thune is so non-committal on this, but but it gets much more difficult as we get into an election year. That will be very tricky for House Republicans and even some Senate Republicans, but more House Republicans.
Let's go to the number 2 story of the morning, the Punch Power Matrix. We are tracking who's up, who's down. Give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, so Trump, Thune, and Johnson, you got to just give it to them. They got it through, and in a way that I don't think a lot of people thought they would. Trump, by the way, we should mention, will sign this bill tonight at the White House, 5 p.m. I assume Mike Johnson will be there. Rajna Krishnamurthy, who is the Illinois Democrat in the House, raised more than $3 million in the second quarter. He's just a money machine, this dude. He has like $20 million in the bank. He's running for Senate in Illinois. I mean, he's one of these guys who just has been stockpiling cash, raising huge amounts of money from all sorts of different folks over the last, several years in anticipation of Dick Durbin retiring. Durbin finally did retire. Maria Cantwell, Marsha Blackburn killed the the state moratorium on state AI regulation. That was a bit screwed up, but I'm sorry. got 99 votes in the Senate. I believe the one no vote was one Tom Tillis. Speaking of Tom Tillis, Don Bacon, both down. They are bouncing, both of them, leaving the House and the Senate, leaving after during reconciliation. Freedom Caucus down. We don't need to talk about that again. Stay tuned for my book about the Freedom Caucus.
We don't have time. We don't have time for that book, Jay.
No, we do not. We do not. John Fetterman said he was angry that he was missing his beach vacation during reconciliation. You and I could talk about
the number of vacations. We could write a book just on the number of vacations that Congress has screwed up for us. So I wish your pain, Mr. Fetterman.
Amen, brother. I wish I could put the amount of money I could save from the change fees, which no longer exist on flights. I would have been a trillionaire by now. But anyway, sorry, John. Sorry, Senator Fetterman.
It's tough out there. We feel that pain, as does our team. All right, let's go to the number 3 story of the morning. David Valado, Republican from California, very tough seat. As you said, 65% of his constituents on Medicaid. Going to be a tough race for him. And now a Democrat's getting into the mix. Ali Mutnick is reporting.
Yeah, Jasmeet Bains, a physician and California State Assembly member, preparing to launch a campaign against Valadao. Valadao voted yes. I was surprised he voted yes. Very surprised. I had folks, California folks, members, campaign people saying, and Ali and I talked about this yesterday, about whether Valadao runs again. This is a district that he lost in the tough midterm election after 2018, after he voted for the Trump tax cuts. He won his seat back shortly after that. But it's a very tough seat for him to keep, especially when every Democratic ad that's going to be run over the next year and a half, I guess that would be a little bit less than a year and a half, will be David Valadao gutted Medicaid spending, closing rural hospitals to keep taxes low on rich people. It's not really true, right? I mean, they kept taxes low for everybody, not only rich people, but there's some of the people they will keep taxes low for. And this is a doctor who is going to say, I'm a doctor. My patients are screwed because of Medicaid cuts. So, Anna, I think this is going to be difficult for Valadao should he decide to run again. It's going to be a seat, and this is the Central Valley of California. So it's a seat that's there's going to be a lot of spending in this seat in 2026.
It's going to be a race we will be watching very closely, and Ali is all over it. So we appreciate that. With that, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you all, even on a holiday, tuning in to the Daily Punch. As always, share it with your friends, your family. We're on YouTube. Subscribe and like. We appreciate that. And as always, you can go deeper on all things Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Sign up for our free morning newsletter. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.